Welcome back to our third episode of Phoenix Radio, which has been brought to you by Giovannino, J.F. Navarra and Co., Tony Murphy from Merck Capital, S&J Couture Candles in Balmain, as well as Visy Dior Hotels. My name is Celeste Marachi, and I'm your co-host, and I'm here again with Giovannino Navarra.
And I'm here with the beautiful Celeste. So thank you very much for being part of this show today once again. So today, Celeste, I want to talk about innovation and creativity at weddings and why there's so much emphasis on everyone having that individual themed look at weddings. Like what's happening there? What do you know with speaking to your friends about weddings and what you see on social media? What's sparking this urgency for people to be so completely different from every other wedding?
Well, I think that's just it, is everyone wants to be different. Everyone wants to be an individual. Everyone wants to showcase who they are as a person. You know, I think that themed weddings are becoming a thing at the moment. It's a driving factor when organizing your wedding. And I think that for some people as well, it helps them keep organized as well. For example, if you have a theme that is all black, you want all your guests to wear black to the wedding, it's easy. It's easy for brides to kind of plan their wedding around a specific theme.
I like that because when everyone's wearing black, you find that the bride stands up, she's wearing white.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
I think that's really nice, yeah.
Yeah, but it could be black, could be yellow, it could be, I don't know, a Harry Potter themed wedding, for example.
Yeah.
But I feel like it helps create the vibe for that day.
Talk about a Harry Potter wedding. There was a wedding where this bride and groom, a very stereo-looking couple, the way they dressed, a lot of labels. They were lovely, just the way they presented themselves. Unfortunately, the groom had developed cancer. And it was very sad. So they had great opposition from the families. They didn't want the wedding to go ahead. They wanted him to work on his rehabilitation, but he just knew that the end was coming. And I think everyone just didn't want to accept the fact this was happening. Not even the bride wanted to accept it. So what they did, they wanted to take the focus away from what he was dying of. So they actually went for a Harry Potter something wedding, which ended up becoming such a unique, happy occasion. And the bride and groom had the best time. There were paramedics on the side just to ensure, and medical officers there to ensure that he was there and he was looked after. But there were times that he had to go sit down and he just wasn't feeling that well. But he just wanted to make the most beautiful, joyous occasion. And what I loved about that, they created a theme based of being sort of a comical, happy occasion. It's very hard to explain, but it was an elegant, fun wedding because they needed to take the focus on, the poor groom, the poor couple. However, he did die 2 weeks later. I went to the funeral. It was very sad, but it ended up being something beautiful that'll be something memorable for the rest of their lives. So sometimes being too innovating and trying to create too much individualism, I think that can actually go against you at a wedding. I think it adds too much pressure on that actual couple itself, and that's what I feel. But continue, you were saying.
And I feel, that's actually great because I feel like coming down to the core connection between you and your partner, and whether it is as I said, Harry Potter themed wedding, creating that on your special day is something beautiful, and I have been to a few weddings where people complain because it's themed and, they don't want to go ahead with the theme. They don't want to dress the part or really have a bar of it at all. But at the end of the day, it's not your wedding that you're doing this for. It's somebody else's.
And sometimes people, you got to make sure that you do work with the correct people. I remember there's some people, when it comes to themed weddings, it's very important that you do work with the events organizer at the function centre that you're working with, especially the more specialised people. I had once a very sort of an interesting issue where the bride and groom, they ordered a flower wall from my team, and the flower wall, we gave them the best pricing. They had photographs and whatever. It was ready to go. At the very last minute, they found someone who could do it for $500 cheaper, and we did question it. They said, no, this is a professional. They know what they're doing, and blah, 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 all the rest of it. So on the day of the wedding, when the flower wall was to be placed behind the main table, it didn't fit because no one had measured it. So these people were not very organised. Now, what they did also, the events coordinator advised the couple to use the flower wall for the garden ceremony outside, which they had. The reason why we were $500 more expensive because we had organised extra people to take the flower wall after the ceremony outside to the back of the main table and correct it properly. So on the function itself, they did not price that. So when the ceremony was finished, all of a sudden they said to the wait staff, "Oh, you need to bring the flower wall in." And the wait staff don't know how to bring the flower wall in, and it had to be picked up. And when they put it behind the main table, it didn't fit. So we had to move at the last minute. We had people outside. It was a very hot day. People wanted their drinks. They wanted their canapes. They wanted to be served. We had no staff. There was a staff were taken away to put a flower wall, which wasn't their job. And we weren't hired to do that, but we helped anyway. While doing that, we're in such a hurry to do that we had to move the platform forward. In turn, we're in such a rush because people complained they wanted drinks outside. Somebody forgot to put the wedging around when we moved, we repositioned the actual platform. So during the function, the platform actually moved, which sometimes, moved and it distorted the actual look of the main table and somebody could have been hurt. And so I think someone did fall over, which actually distorted the look of the event. And sometimes I always say to people, just because you get a better price doesn't mean you're going to get the great service. There's a reason why people are professionals, people have a good name in the industry, and it's best to have one person that coordinates everything for you. Is that a good picture or a very good analogy that I just gave you?
No, it is. Yeah. And I think it's really important because, you're already spending so much on your wedding. Realistically, what's an extra $500, $1,000? I think a lot of people these days are focused on trying to get the best wedding possible for the lowest price possible. And that kind of makes me think, is that, 'cause obviously you're in the industry and you would know and you would see how the times have changed. Do you think that's the reason why people are opting for more like midweek weddings or like Friday or Sunday weddings because the price is better? Like what is your opinion on that?
I honestly believe, no, it's actually quite the opposite. They happen to be wedding because it's based on supply and demand. So people for instance, it's harder to get staff to work on a Saturday evening than a Sunday. So because people you find a lot of young people prefer to go out on a Saturday night, or a lot of people do work during the day. For instance, a lot of my staff at Visy, Dior, they have they either have a full-time job, which they have to work a Saturday, around the northwest region, but even around the Leichhardt and Marsfield, different areas, they either have a full-time job which they have to work a Saturday or a Sunday during the day, mostly Saturdays, or that Saturday's their catch-up day for doing chores, or they might have a casual job they have to go to. So you have to sort of beg them to come work on a Saturday night. It's often, and Saturday nights, people just, especially the young ones, they just want to go out, let their hair out on a Saturday evening. So often that's why many times we end up paying more money for staff on a Saturday versus a Sunday, so that's why weddings end up being more expensive on a Saturday based on supply and demand and trying to get people to do it. On a Sunday, you find a lot of venues, the better venues are busy, but a lot of places aren't. So we end up having to discount because we want to make sure the venues are full on a Sunday, so people will go there on a Sunday and Friday. But people, when they come to us, it's just for a Sunday or Friday or weekday, they don't often ask us for a better price. They just choose that. And I've noticed that a lot of people now, they just want to get married, have a great celebration, have a good time, start the weekend by having this ceremony on a Friday, go to church or reception. You find people will take the day off, and will take any excuse to take a day off on a weekday.
Yeah.
And then they, it's like going to a great night out, the celebrations, the ceremony, then the celebration, have a good time, and that's the start for the whole weekend. So everyone sort of continues on celebrating the whole weekend, the Saturday and the Sunday, and then Monday they're back to work. Then you have those people that just want more relaxed aspect to a wedding where they want their guests to be there on time, because many people do complain. I see it often on Saturdays that people can't make it to the ceremony because they're busy. Work contractors, whatever the story is, their hairdressers, whatever it might be, they just can't be there. So they get there late, and often they're tired.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is every single wedding, but majority it is like that. You find that on Saturdays most people go to the ceremony, and people, they get there on time. Actually, often, many cases are actually early. what we do, because it's a Sunday evening, we often encourage people to put the invitation a little bit earlier. So either the ladies should start, say, 5:30. So the event will finish about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the evening, which is a good time to finish. And you find that people are so relaxed because they haven't worked, they're not so stressed out. They find that people that linger on afterwards. They sort of talk after, hang around for an extra half an hour, which I don't mind. I love when people hang around after an event. But Saturdays you find a lot of people end up leaving early because it just gets a little bit tired. I'm not saying everybody, but that's what I've noticing. And Fridays, it's a commencement of the weekend, and they love to be there till late night. So that's what I'm seeing. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's a financial aspect to it. But however, we do, people that do come to us and say, look, we're on a budget, we don't have much money to spend. Can you help us? Can you advise us? Then we will say to them, listen, why don't you consider taking a weekday party? And people love you. They'll come. They're going to have a great time regardless. No one's going to say, oh, no, I'm not going to come because it's a weekday. What sort of friend would they be?
Exactly.
And would you want them there if they're going to be that way anyway?
Totally not. That's actually pretty interesting. I did have a question because I've been thinking about this, I think, for my whole life. Why is it that weddings end at 11 o'clock at night? The reason I'm asking is because I recently went to a wedding in Italy, and it started at like 2 p.m., but it didn't finish until 1 o'clock the next morning, 2 o'clock the next morning. So it was literally like 11, 12-hour day, which I loved. I thought it was fantastic. There wasn't a rush to get out of there at 11, but I find that weddings in Sydney or Australia, they all finish around 11. What's the go with that?
What I've noticed is that we live in one of the busiest cities in the world. And we basically, our life is basically stressed. We're rushing and rushing and rushing because we're trying to keep up with a certain lifestyle, trying to maintain a certain lifestyle that we believe we need to be a part of. So you find when that people do go to anything, you find people get tired very easily. Unless sometimes I have a caffeine tablet because I'm overtired, or have 5 cups of coffee because my adrenaline will go down. I have coffees to wake myself up. But people, you are correct. You find that people that are working so hard, and then they go to an event, and they start off having a good time, but it comes to that 10:30. It's very similar to that afternoon when your sugar levels drop off in the afternoon. You become 3 o'clock. That happens at events. You find that a lot of people around 9:30, 10 o'clock. They just feel tired. I've seen so many weddings where great night, great food, great service. Everyone's got a smile on their faces, and the band is blaring. But you find a lot of people in there, especially in their, say, the mid-40s, they start to get a little bit tired because they've been working all day. They didn't have time to relax. So they start to consider maybe going home a little bit earlier. Not because they don't want to be there. They're just physically tired. They've had a really big week and they're just tired. That's why I always say to people that maybe you consider taking on a Sunday, maybe that might be take that in consideration. I went to a wedding, a destination wedding recently, and the same thing happened. I found out a lot of people, even though they did go away and they had accommodation on site, a lot of people did end up going to bed early that night. There was supposed to be some sort of after party, and a lot of people didn't go to the after party. They went to their rooms because they were tired.
It's exhausting.
And it was exhausting. It wasn't anything. It was they had the long drive to get there. Then they had, the day before and get ready. And even on the day, a lot of people were working that day. A lot of people couldn't get away from their jobs. So they rushed down to the destination wedding. They barely got changed in time and they went to it. But this is not a reflection on the couple themselves. It's just the way things are. I'm not discouraging Saturday night weddings. I'm not discouraging destination weddings. It's something to take in consideration that sometimes people need to really simplify what they really want. And remember, it goes back to your marital vows to one another, the celebration you really love, your commitment to one another, the two families coming together, and everyone being there happy for you to be there. And if anyone needs to make a big deal of it, maybe, I shouldn't say this, maybe don't worry about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think destination weddings are a great idea. I think they're beautiful. I think they're different. I think that, you can make it something really special.
Especially if you're destined all the way to Visy Dior.
And that's what I was about to say. But Visy Dior is great because you make it feel like a destination wedding while it's still being easily accessible for people in Sydney and in, surrounding suburbs. So I think that it's a great idea. You kind of get that feel of, oh my gosh, I'm going away because I can stay at this hotel venue. But realistically, it's...
One
not
thing,
that far.
one thing I advise everybody with destination weddings, just be careful. Sometimes you might book a wonderful place, but be careful if there's to ensure there's enough accommodation around. Because I've seen so many times where I won't mention certain areas, but where you go there and now there's a 3-night minimum.
Yeah.
So and the prices are ridiculous.
They are.
Honestly, they're just so high. And I understand these people have to make money, but they're taking advantage of it. So it's a 3-night minimum and $450 a night. And, think about if you've got a family of, the parents and the children, that can be a little bit too much. And then people, driving down there in that afternoon traffic trying to get there. So from a trip that's supposed to be 2.5 hours, ends up being a 4.5-hour trip.
Exactly.
To get there, you're very exhausted. Then you have to check in, and it's not really fair to a lot of people invited. Unless the bride and groom actually live in that particular area, and I can understand, but something people have to really take into consideration. Is it fair for a lot of people, but it can be an economic strain on a lot of people, especially if people now, you have to take consideration. Do people have pets at home? Do you have children at home? Do you have elderly you have to look after? You have to really take that in consideration. Are your guests don't really enjoy it? Is it really that important? Is it about your destination venue, or is it about your celebration?
Yeah.
It's something to take consideration. I don't want to sound like a nunu over here, an old man, but that's my opinion on this matter.
No, and I agree, and I think it's very similar for the younger generation as well, because it's not just about having children at home or having pets at home, but it's expensive. If you don't live at home, if you're out, renting, or you're paying off a mortgage, and a lot of people don't budget for these. They can become
special
very, events.
They become very expensive. Destination weddings can be overly expensive. You'd be surprised what you're really paying for. You end up paying sometimes double, even if you have a small amount of people, 100 people. It is double. So you're better off having 100 people in Sydney, or maybe closer to where you live, than going far off. But Celeste, I want to ask you again about this pressure about being completely different at weddings. Why the creative aspect that people need to create something so unique that I feel that I feel it just takes so much pressure on the couple themselves, and sometimes I feel that it takes on a lot of financial strain on the actual people that are actually paying for the wedding. Could be the parents of the bride, parents of the groom, or could be the couples themselves, where they'll go out and they'll borrow the money, but then they realise that's not even enough. Why? Why the anxiety, or why do you choose? What's the belief that's going to be that easy when it can't be? Sorry, is the question a little bit too difficult? Am I being too spontaneous with this type of questions? Or?
No, I don't think it's too spontaneous. I just think that, look, at the end of the day, everybody's different. I can speak from someone in my demographic. It doesn't mean that it's my opinion. Or the way that I would feel about a wedding. But I think that, for the younger generation that are getting married at the moment, everything is about, being an individual.
You are young, Celeste.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But for me, I don't think I would focus too much on having an individual wedding or a themed wedding or something that's completely different to what everyone else is doing.
So what advice would you give to a lot of people, a lot of young girls in your age group
Just
today?
be yourself. Do something that makes you happy. At the end of the day, that the whole point behind a wedding is that you're marrying the person that you love. It's not about what everyone thinks about your day, or how expensive everything is, because when that day is over, all that's left is you and your husband or your wife. It's not the day. Yes, it creates amazing memories, but that's all it is. You're still there for love.
Well, that's interesting, because I'll be out next week. I'm going to be calling on a lady that I'm doing my social. What's it called? Social creating content.
Social
Creating content.
Social content creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has just been transformed from being a social media influencer.
Yeah.
Her name is Chanel. I've actually signed up with her. I'm going to be asking her, Chanel specifically. I'm going to invite her to be on the show next week, because I want to ask her these specific questions. But she's more involved with another different type of more connected to the brides themselves. So as an events coordinator, I'm always talking to more families in a group environment. And obviously being a man or a bloke, I find a lot of brides today don't they're very polite. They tell me what they want, but often they won't express what they're really feeling, and that's up to them. That's why that's always try and. I'm always hiring younger people to be around in my office to that connect to a mature younger person, and if I do have an older person in my office, I remind them to actually just clear the canvas, clear what you're thinking, and just listen to the brides to see what they want and how we can make this wedding as unique as possible based on what they feel that they want, not based on the decorations. Decorations should be the secondary.
They should.
It's
be.
what you want.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. What else would you think? With a lot of these brides of today, I'm asking you this factor with the pressure. How would you recommend them to sort of to refocus on the love they have for their partner? Just an example. I had a friend of mine. He was telling me 20 years ago. Sorry, he got married 8 years ago. He reckons they had the best relationship for 5 years. As soon as he proposed to her and they booked the venue, he said that they didn't talk. They argued for 11 months straight prior to the wedding. He goes, it's almost she just turned into another person altogether. Yeah. And he couldn't understand what happened to it. It was all about the wedding. The wedding was no longer about them, and he felt left out.
Yeah.
So, what changes a lady or woman or a bride to become that way?
Yeah. I think that there is a lot of pressure on creating the perfect day, and I think that it gets lost in what an actual perfect day looks like.
Is that because of all the social media content that's coming out, or what's on?
Look, I feel like that does play a little part, but this is the way that it's been for the last 20, 30 years. Brides are always going to be more high-strung, more stressed, more bridezillas. It is what it is. That's, that term's been around forever. But I think that there's so much pressure on the bride wanting everything to be so perfect that it kind of gets lost. You kind of forget that there's another half to you now. And, Can I
give you an example? That's something, I know it just shows my age. I organised someone's wedding back in the 80s, and this lady was a gorgeous lady, a very influential lady, came from a very influential family. I remember when she got married, the newspapers were over there. She had this beautiful, big, large wedding at the Conqueror. She had over 450 people. The wedding cake, every little aspect of it was absolutely perfect. My father and my mother did such a good job coordinating the function. I was very heavily involved, even though I was young. Now, years later, when their daughter got married, back in the late 90s, 2000, she came back. She goes, I don't want anything like my mother had. I want a very small wedding. I want it very unique, very pleasurable. I want it very relaxed. And she only had about 120 guests. It was a beautiful, simplified, completely different from her mother's wedding. Yeah. And she was telling me, bragging on, this is what the brides of today want. And I remember listening to it, thinking, okay, but I've got different other brides happening here. Yeah. It's basically what you want. However, now her daughter came to do her wedding. This is the granddaughter now. And she came in. She's gone completely the reverse, gone back to the way her grandmother did it. Yeah. The big wedding cake, the big decorations. They're close to about 400, she had 480 people, completely different. And and her mum was in so much shock. She couldn't understand that. Even though the mother was genuinely young and she looked really great, she couldn't understand why her daughter was completely different, and she had the completely different mindset compared to what she had. She wanted the way her grandmother had it, which is very interesting. And I remember at the time that the grandmother was arguing with the daughter at the time in the late 90s, saying, why can't we do this? And she goes, no, I want it like that. That's what the brides of today want, Mum. I remember she didn't even want a veil. Oh, and wow. The granddaughter had a veil, this is little things that you think, sometimes people believe they know what they want. And that's why I'm invited you to Celeste to have you on the show, because even though I've been there, I've done it. But however, the only people that know what's really going on is a specific age group. Mm. And that's where this show's all about, is just understanding what people want and talking to different people and have a better understanding how we move forward. And that's why we're going to start inviting people, a lot of guests out there, their feedback on the actual show, what we can talk about. We're going to be introducing different suppliers to come into the show, anything from the florists to photographers, videographers, social influencers,
hairdressers, makeup artists.
Continue on, and mostly the designers. And then we're going to talking to a lot of great younger people that really take wedding coordinated wedding creativity seriously. There's a lot of people out there that think they know what they're doing, but I don't believe they understand the sacrifice of giving up your weekends and your weeknights and being a service to your client. And there are a lot of great wedding creators out there, and there's a lot of upcoming new people that have come up onto the scene. I like the new the way they're doing things, where they're using a lot of programs and products. So using the Uber formula, the bride and groom have more control, so no one can actually change what the bride and groom wanted that particular day. So how much more time do we have on the show, Raul? 2 more minutes. I've got to tell you something interesting.
Tell me.
Am I rambling on too much?
No, tell me.
You told me I rambled too much.
You do, but tell me.
Okay, there was a wedding once where the bride and groom came in. They booked the whole wedding. She wanted yellow. She mentioned yellow before, but the mother wanted red theming.
Okay.
She came down. We created everything for her with the coordinators. They did such a good job outlining everything. The mother came to nearly every consultation. There was always that little argument how the mother wanted red, she wanted yellow. Something to do with something cultural. I don't know. Still don't understand why. What happened? So on the day of the wedding, at the time you always had this procedure. She signed off on everything.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. On the day of the wedding, the mother, interestingly enough, she was so sneaky. She showed up prior to the event, and she walked into the room. She called the coordinator. She goes, "This is wrong. We ordered red theming."
No.
And I happened to be there, and my coordinator, sometimes they're a little bit too kind, too good, and too trusting. She said, "No, that got changed. I sent an email on this, and she went on about it. She was creating a scene, a little bit embarrassing." So I approached her, said, "Listen, madam, I'm sorry, can I see the paperwork?" And I looked at the contract from a court, and I said, "Look, it says yes." She goes, "No, that's been updated. You've made a mistake. I want to change it. I'm paying for this wedding." I said, "I know you're paying for it, but your daughter booked in the function. This is the contract is under her name." Anyway, my coordinator panicked. She quickly got in contact with the suppliers. We had to change everything from yellow to red. We did that. Cost me at the time about something like $600 out of my own pocket to fix the situation. The bride walked into the room just prior to the event. She started crying. She goes, "What the hell? This is supposed to be yellow." And I looked at the coordinator and I said, "See what you just did? Not only I've lost $600 and everyone's had anxiety. We've been stressed out for the last 2 hours trying to fix the problem. You just made the bride very, very upset." I said, "You should have stuck to that." Now, so we're in the process of now developing a special program that the bride from now on, like Uber, she gets in, she logs in with her own login details. She tells us exactly what she wants, and nothing can be changed unless the bride decides to change it herself. Even we can't change anything.
Yeah,
so these are new programs we're looking at. And I think it's going to be much better for the brides themselves, because now they don't have to always run through everything with their families. They can sit down and lie down at 2 o'clock in the morning if they can't sleep one night, go through all the pictures and different styles and be able to generate what they think they want for the actual event. We'll be able to put it together, and they just log into it, and they'll have confirmation on. And then from there, from the confirmation, we're going to advise that this will actually send a copy to other members of the family. Could be the mother bride, mother groom, whoever it may be, other family members, so everybody knows what's going on. So it takes the pressure off the wedding coordinators.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we can focus more on delivering better service and better events for the bride and groom. Anything else you want to add, Celeste, to that? Or
No, I think that today has been really informative, and we have so much more to talk about. But for today, I think that's enough. And we'd like to thank you for joining Phoenix Radio, which has been brought to you by Giovannino, JF Navarra & Co., Tony Murphy from Merck Capital, S&J Couture Candles in Balmain, as well as Visy Dior Hotels.
And Celeste, thank you for being professional, and thank you very much. I know you have not done radio or broadcasting before, and I believe you've been fantastic. So thank you. And we hope that we just continue improving, and you continue enjoying the content of this show and find us entertaining. And please feel free to get in contact with us with the information, because we want to better the show for your listening.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Ciao. God bless. Bye.